Hi, I'm Brian Rippey, Sales Director of the BYD Material Handling Program. Today I'd like to talk business case, cost of ownership, the dreaded words, how do you sell a more expensive forklift to your customer? As we know, BYD has a revolutionary technology on its hands here. Our batteries run forever. They charge in an hour, 60 minutes. They last for the life of the truck and even well beyond that. They don't require any battery maintenance. There's no watering associated. There's no liabilities. There's all these tremendous advantages to what we have over the competition. So how do you tell that story to your customer in a way that he understands and can translate literal economic value to? So he in turn can help sell his bosses on the concept and get everyone to buy in and buy your BYD trucks. So what I've done for everyone out there in our dealership network is developed a few simple tools that you can use to, one, lay out the customer cost, what it actually costs to own a forklift, start that conversation with your customer, and also then spell out the economic advantages. So I'm going to show you two things today. One's an Excel spreadsheet where you can plug and play different data points and actually build a business case, and the other would be a PowerPoint presentation, a real simple one where you can plug that information in and have a nice, professionally looking presentation so that they can in turn take that and show it around to their other stakeholders at that business. Let's get started. Here we are looking at the BYD ROI Calculator, comparing our technology to that of forklifts powered by lead-acid batteries. There's a chance that you're viewing this a few years from now and you're wondering what a lead-acid battery is doing in a forklift. It's true, folks. They existed for many years. People dealt with it. They put up with it. So here we are in 2017, trying to change the way people do business. So sitting down with the customer, we want to get as much information as we can so we can paint a really accurate picture of what their savings will look like with a BYD fleet. So getting started here, I go first to fleet data. I say, look, I have, customer has maybe 20 trucks up for grabs. In other words, 20 trucks that they're going to be replacing this year. I usually go with their total fleet when we're looking at this because sooner or later it's all going to be BYD anyway. So let's say the customer tells me there's 40 trucks currently in his fleet. The number of shifts is 2. 8 hours per shift, again, that's an approximate. That helps us later for some other data points that we collect. Annual hours, again, this is how many key-on hours do they expected to run with their forklifts, right? Whether it be, basically, let's look at their last lease or see what they're asking for in their RFP. So here it's 3,000. And we're going to look at it over a 5-year term. So once we have some basic fleet data, we can go over to the truck capital cost. And this is a little bit more complicated than when we're buying a propane truck with lead acid because you got to go someplace, buy a chassis, and then also maybe somewhere else and buy a battery or a charger. Anyway, it might be a combined quote, but it's going to be 3 different entities. So we like to break it out to help our customers see this. So in the case of a 5,000-pound truck, we're going to run with these numbers. Their chassis is $25,000 approximately. The battery is $6,400. Their charger, they're going to have to replace chargers at $2,500. And here their battery watering system, they have to add per battery is $500. With BYD, it's a simpler story. We got a truck battery charger that costs $55,000. That drops right to the bottom. No other additions there required. What's this number right here, this $6,400? Well, that's what I'm accounting for is a replacement battery at some time during those 5 years. As we know, lead-acid batteries, unless they're meticulously cared for and with a lot of luck on your side, they're not going to last 15,000 hours. So this customer expects that over the course of the life of those vehicles, he's going to have to replace 100% of those batteries. If he's very optimistic, let's say he says only 50%, in which case this number would drop to $3,200. So we'll run with that number for the sake of this exercise. So now we've gotten the fleet data and the truck capital cost. It's time to move on to the operating cost. This is where the fun starts for us folks. First, we look at electricity or fuel cost. Kind of strange to think about a kilowatt hour as a fuel, but it is. It makes that forklift, gives the forklift the ability to run around in circles up and down and do what it needs to do for its job. So here, again, I think considering that the kilowatt hours, the price per kilowatt hour is going to be the same at a given location, we actually use about 30% less electricity just because our whole system is more efficient, starting from the battery all the way through on through. So we see a fuel savings benefit of about 10 cents an hour, which in the case of a high hour operation can save $30 or $40 a month. Hey, nothing to sneeze at. But this is where the true cost savings are. As we know, the most expensive thing of any forklift is the guy sitting on it, the operator, or someone working on it, whether it be maintenance or even battery, just operational swapping, that type of thing. So the first line that we look at here is the truck maintenance cost. Just an estimated number of whether the customer does their maintenance or not, or whether they bid it out, what it would cost on an hourly basis. I know some of you guys put this out in a monthly rate of $330, $270. We just ask that you put it in an hourly form. So basically just do some division and work this out if needed. So here, $1.20 is not an unreasonable rate for a 15,000 hour fleet. The lead acid battery might be an aggressive price. What we do with BYD is typically we either put it as the same, or we actually take a discount, because I have an 80-volt truck. I have a battery that's very stable, that doesn't throw out wacky currents and spike voltages, basically wreaking havoc on my circuit boards and maybe my motors. So we like to give ourselves or assign ourselves a small discount on maintenance. But this is where these two costs right here between battery maintenance and productivity loss, and I'll explain this in a second, this is where BYD really separates itself from lead acid. We all understand it's painful, it's aggravating to deal with lead acid batteries on a daily basis, but it's also costly. And this calculator helps us really spell out those costs. So the first thing I do to look at battery maintenance, this number is basically a result of some inputs on the left-hand side of the screen. So first I ask my customer, do you handle your battery maintenance, or do you use a third party? Or is it a little bit of both? So we'll look at a little bit of both combination for right now. So basically the customer might do a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but then call in the experts to do maybe a monthly maintenance check or a quarterly check, and then do the heavy repairs as needed. If they drop a cell or if need to bring the torch in, so to speak. So for a fleet of 40 trucks, that's running 3,000 hours a day, $3,000 a year, I ask my customer first, how much do you have somebody that looks after your batteries for you? And they generally do have somebody dedicated to that, whether it's on the first shift, second shift, or both. So real simple question. Out of his 40 hours, or in the case of two people, out of their 80 hours, how many hours do you think are dedicated towards the battery watering, towards the contactors, towards the cleaning, towards the XYZ? It really adds up. And they say, well, Frank or Jose, whoever it may be, spends about half his time doing that. If they're in a scenario where they're doing battery swapping, usually you have one dedicated person that's all he does is either fix batteries, maintain batteries, or help people swap batteries. In this case, out of their 80 hours of working time, we're going to say about half of somebody's job on each shift is to look after the batteries. Or if we wanted to say even less, we could. Well, we're going to go and say that 20 hours per week are dedicated towards battery maintenance. Their labor rate is a really important thing to get at here as well. And we understand it probably won't be a mechanic being responsible for the batteries, but there's a good chance he's making $20 an hour or more. And in that case, when you add up the workman's comp and other vacation and other types of benefits, payroll taxes and whatnot, generally that's going to cost the company about $30, or about 50% higher than the hourly salary that they're making. So we're going to leave it at $30. Then I ask the customer, well, how often does your third party, you may have a battery expert coming out or a battery vendor that does an audit, and they say, it usually costs about $40 a month per battery. That's the fixed cost. And I say, well, do they find stuff? Do they end up replacing hardware? Do they replace a contactor, a connector? Oh, yeah, typically they do. So we try to get it at a good average. What do you think it costs really for them to come in once a month? So in this case, let's say the customer tells us, it works out to about $50. Perfect. So I filled both of these. Again, I filled out this entire column, and I look over here, and that translates all of that money, again, their time and energy, and in this case, third-party billing, translates to about 46 cents an hour of additional cost just to make sure those batteries reach their useful life. Good. So now the next thing that happens with these batteries, whether they're opportunity charging or they're swapping, is that invariably the operator is going to take time out of his productive day to either wait for a battery to be fully charged or Or maybe he grabs a truck that doesn't have the battery wasn't the cycle hadn't totally completed, or he's in a scenario where he has to go over to a station and wait for somebody to swap his battery out. Time is taken out of their productive day to do this. So I asked the customer the same thing, just in different order here. First of all, what's your operator making? And they say, well, maybe it's $15 an hour. I said, okay, well, all in, it's probably closer to 25. Okay, we get general agreement on that. And I say, between all those inconveniences with this lead acid battery, whether it's grabbing the wrong one or all the reasons listed before, how much time do you think on average, I know it's not every day, but on average, is the operator spending fussing with batteries instead of working? They say, you know what? I'd like to think it's 15 minutes, but it's probably closer to 20. Perfect. So we look over here. This is productivity loss just in the way of operator wages. We're not talking about what it really costs not to be moving equipment. But here, even just looking at, again, 20 minutes a day of lost productivity, that translates to over $1 an hour of operating costs on that truck. It almost rivals the maintenance cost. Anyway, so here we are. We have all of our data filled out. Of course, there's a lot of additional benefits of getting away from lead acid battery and going to iron phosphate BYD technology that you can talk about with your customer. This particular calculator does not capture those, but it's certainly things to consider in addition. So let's get to it here and see what this looks like. Is there a strong business case for a BYD truck, even though it's more expensive up front than the lead acid battery? Does this make sense for this particular customer that has a fleet of 40 and is running 3,000 hours a year? Let's see. So on my total cost of ownership here over a 5-year period, I see that yes, there is savings with BYD. In fact, we save them about $8,000 per truck, looking at it from this scenario based on the information that they provided. It's pretty impressive. Now I'm going to go here to my simple payback, which is something that a CFO would look at, or somebody that's making the decisions as far as, do we want to spend the extra money for BYD and reap the operational savings? I'm looking here and just on their purchase price of their trucks, if they were to, again, turn over all their trucks at one time, they'd have to spend an extra $700,000 in capital to be able to go to BYD and to be able to reap the benefits of savings at over $200,000 a year. Well, how fast do they make up that initial investment? It's about 3.5 years. There's another KPI here, a metric that's important called the internal rate of return. That's 22%. Generally, we like to see this number around 2 years as a slam dunk for any, why wouldn't you do it? No-brainer type scenario for an accountant. And this number, anything north of 15% is good. So here we have an interesting scenario. It's good, not great. We are saving them money, but it's taking them a little bit of extra time to make it back. So it's not necessarily a no-brainer. Let's look over at a lease case and see how this plays out. Well, in a lease case, which a lot of our major customers are going to now, I can look at this from a different perspective. I can show the customer on a monthly basis what their out-of-pocket costs are now for this truck. And one thing that helps BYD in a big way is the longevity of our battery. Finance companies have taken note of this. Our battery lasts forever, so to speak. The truck, being 80-volt technology, is also very reliable and robust, and is considered to have a longer half-life than a typical truck would. So this translates into a very strong residual of 35% on a 5-year lease with 3,000 annual operating hours. Now, if we were to compare that to, let's say, one of the legacy OEMs, there's no way that they would have even a comparable residual. As you know, that at the end of the term, that battery, if they could make it through and there wasn't replacements on the way, is going to have zero commercial value. In fact, they may even contemplate, why put a new battery into this truck? So we put a 10% residual on a scenario like this. Even if a dealer was pretty aggressive, he may say 15%. So all of a sudden here, even though my initial capital costs are significantly higher on a lease basis, I'm only $60 extra a month. So let's see what that looks like when we add in all the other operational costs that we had spelled out before and the savings with BYD. So again, I'm saving them $25 a month on maintenance. I'm saving them about the same amount of money on fuel or kilowatt hours, electricity. But of course,
With lead acid battery, they're stuck paying $375 to maintain them and all the productivity loss of just their operator alone. So what does this mean? On a monthly basis, I can save them over $400 in a lease scenario. This is very exciting, folks. This is the no-brainer. So again, like my propane calculator, we can spell this out in two different ways. As far as the cover sheet, top line. The world is too busy. They don't have time to look at all these graphs and charts and figures. How about this? Customer, we can save you $204,000 a year. If you want to buy this truck, you're going to make your money back in 3.41 years. Again, a nice summary. The customer wants more information, or maybe this is where you've put this information together with the operations manager and he needs to show his boss. Chances are they're going to appreciate a document like this a lot more. If they want to know more, we can get into it. But let's just give them the top line results. On a lease summary again, we do the same format. I basically show them what your actual lease payment is, and then I back out the savings relative to lead acid batteries so they can see what their net lease payment could possibly look like. This is kind of a fun way to do it. Again, it's an attention grabber. And again, if you look here, if you go to print this, these should all be formatted appropriately. So basically on one page, you're going to see a clean view of this. And there's one other summary tab here that you can look at as a reference. You can, again, simplified, where you can see your total savings based on electricity, truck maintenance, battery maintenance, and productivity per truck on a per year basis over the entire term. It depends on how you slice and dice it and how you want to present it to your customer. So again, with some basic inputs, we get the benefit of having a real meaningful conversation with our customer and be able to show them on paper in a very objective way the true cost savings benefits of a BYD truck. Hope this was helpful. Have a great day.
Again, if you need this information or any other valuable material to present to your customer, please look on your dealer resource folder. Thanks.